infinitesimally small. I am in this human, this spark of life. This subtle, beautiful, intelligent being. I am waking up to who I am. Finding myself again. Understanding how really very simple it is to go beyond the dimension of matter with just a thought. And be just pure consciousness. Tiny spark of being. Now going home. Allowing myself to rise beyond the dimension of matter. And move into a world of infinite light. It's totally quiet. I've left everything and everyone behind for a while. And I'm going back to my origins. Back to that space. Where I come from. And that infinite source of light waits for me. And receives me with much love. I make contact. The energy of the divine touches me. And fills me. In this quiet state of peace. I am being altered. gently. And quietly being filled. Being restored to what I once was. Made pure again. That contact is only a thought away. I have access to this place anytime, anywhere. I can sit with God for hours or for a few seconds. And I discover the beginnings of a personal relationship. I begin to understand this one's mind. Great treasures are waiting for me. And I can step down from that quiet world of contact and come in an instant into this world. But I know something more, and I have something extra. Om Shanti. So we have a little while before the end of the session if anybody has any questions or anything they would like to share with the group. You don't have any questions? You have to speak loudly so everyone can hear. This brother's question is that most religions tell us that God is omnipresent, and the BK system doesn't say that, and he would like an explanation. In my experience, the idea of omnipresence is actually quite recent, at least in Christianity, which is what I grew up in. They never taught that when I was little. It's the last 20, 30 years only. And the question of people's experience of God has on the whole led to the conclusion that God must be the omnipresent driving force of everything that's going on, nature and all of that. And what the Brahma Kumaris say is that whatever is the quality of God, fire went into the iron and it got hot and it can burn anything. But when that iron is away from the fire, what will generally happen is it will cool down, it won't burn. So that quality of heat is only present where the fire is. And like that, if we say that God is pure and God is good and God is wise and all of these positive qualities that are attributed to God, then if there is anything that is contrary to that, then that will denote an absence of God in that place. So that if you find even one instance of anything which is not God, then you don't have omnipresence right there. You see, if you have a single instance of any human being expressing hatred or violence to any other human being, right there you don't have the omnipresence of God. And our newspapers and televisions show us a number of such instances on a regular basis. We have many instances of human beings in trouble calling out to God that, "Oh God, please fix my health. I am ill and I'm in pain and the doctors can't do anything. Do something." And he may or may not. but these kinds of circumstances indicate that, you know, there is someone who's a human being who is addressing a someone else. The fact of any kind of religious prayer, always the human being is saying, you know, "Oh God, you know, help me, have mercy on me, teach me, make me wise, make me better, forgive my sins," etc., and so forth. If God was already in that human being, it wouldn't make sense for him to ask himself to give himself something that he doesn't have when he's already got it. It's, you see, like that. These kinds of things will let us know that the idea of omnipresence is a feeling that people will get. And we try to distinguish between feelings and then statements of fact. You see, because when you are there and you are feeling God around you, and you will say, "I'm surrounded by God, I'm close to God, God is with me." And any time, any place, you can have that. But it's not that at all times all other people will be feeling that. You will be feeling that. And so sometimes people have said, well, if you're just subtle enough, if you're just intense enough about your spiritual practice, you will feel the... And when we are practicing soul consciousness, it's like you're going into the dimension inside. And from there, you step into the dimension outside. And the inside and the outside dimension are different from the physical dimension. And the inside and the outside dimension are not that different from each other. I think that there are two things going on. Oh, he's asking whether I would confirm the idea of the evolution of the human spirit through matter as is described by the Vedanta philosophy and is confirmed by science. So my thought on this matter is that my understanding of the soul is that when the soul first comes onto the earth, then the soul is in its state of completion. The soul is in a perfect state, and the behavior, intelligence, civilization, level of physical health and beauty, etc., is corresponding with that. And then as time goes by, this declines. And when it has declined about 50%, then the soul engages in a variety of practices which are designed to progress. And so you have, for the last period of what we call the cycle, on the one hand, the soul is doing a lot of things for the purpose of evolution, and at the same time, because of being in a condition where the energy of the soul is nevertheless being used, you have the two directions going on at the same time, but overall there is loss. Because while the soul is attempting to evolve through spiritual practice and through good karma and so on and so forth, the soul doesn't have sufficient information to achieve it. What I do think is that at the time when God informs human beings of sufficient information, then by using that information appropriately, that soul can evolve from a completely fallen state to a completely evolved state. And this is what I think is going on. Yeah. A very interesting question. He says, what role do I see free will playing? And Charlie tells me we have to finish. So let this be the last question, because we have other things happening soon. Free will is something that we have at every moment. We can do whatever we want. And yet at the same time, there are forces that are pushing on us. There's a force of destiny, there's a force of karma, there's so many things. So I feel that one's will is freest when you know a lot of details about of spiritual knowledge, because you can understand what are those forces of destiny and what are the forces of karma and so on. And then we experience that there are like windows of opportunity when your free will must be used, and then there's other moments where you see that your free will just doesn't have any meaning because there's a force going on and you have to just accept. So it's like there's 2 feet. One of them is free will and one of them is something else. Anyway, I'd like to thank you all very much for attending this morning, and if anyone would like to talk to me personally afterwards, that would be fine. Om Shanti. Let's close with a moment of silence. Charlie has some announcements. Toni. How am I going to recognize him? How am I going to recognize him? This was I had an experience which was of a point of light appearing to me, and very intense bright light like a star, which had a field around it, quite big, which was tangible feeling of bliss. So I looked at this and felt this, and I knew that this was what I had asked for, an exact representation of exactly what whoever was like. But I said to myself, but I don't understand this. I need information. I need much more information. This is insufficient. And actually along my particular path, there have been a number of experiences like this, mystical experiences, but always there was in my mind this feeling, well, this is very wonderful, this is very excellent, this is brilliant, but I need explanation. And so this desire, this demand for the information that explains these kinds of phenomena was the most important thing to me. It was more important than having mystical experiences. And so I was in an even greater problem, because I knew in my heart that the religions that were around and the people that were around could not give me information, what I was looking for. So, and pass. What has been done in the world to search for truth and to search for God, and even in spite of the fact that that search has not yielded much in the way of fruit, it has nevertheless given us an incredible text from which all of us come. So it's not really that we come on our search for God totally empty-handed, totally knowing nothing. But I feel that we have been given whereby we can evaluate anything that presents itself to us as being truth. So while on the one hand we don't know, on the other hand we do have some indicators in the form of mystical experiences provided me with a kind of a confidence that, well, I probably would be able to recognize it when it came my way. And I think that situation is very material, extremely subtle, outside the range of human comprehension ordinarily. And yet, for us to be able to have that comprehension and have that contact and establish a relationship, in spite of that, is nevertheless there. It's a living experience on the part of many, many people. Many people, they say, oh yeah, regularly I talk to God. And many people will feel that, yes, God is looking after me, God is protecting me throughout my journey on this life. There is a very clear sense within people that if they do right action, then that brings them closer to God. If they take time in solitude to be quiet, then that can bring them nearer to God. And sometimes people enjoy the ceremony of religious rituals because it generates a certain kind of atmosphere in which a person's spiritual side gets awakened, and it becomes of people who have had very bitter experiences in life, who have got themselves into bad trouble, just totally surrendering and just coming clean with God and just turning over their lives to God. So that act of infinite quantities held, how much space or what do they take up? You know, these qualities. And on the other hand, there is a desire, there is a yearning that, you know, it is there and it is part of my inheritance, so it can't be outside, totally outside the range of my comprehension. There must be some way in which my consciousness can be sharpened up and refined such that it becomes possible for me to have a direct perception of God. Otherwise, you know, it's such a terrible tragedy for something to be there and yet, by definition, inaccessible. And then on the other hand, it is also said that God is very accessible. There are people who even say, oh, wherever I look, you know, I just see God and God and God, and I just feel God everywhere, and all of this. You know, so there are things that we have in our minds that contain certain amount of self-contradiction. There's unclarity in our minds that it comes to us from our searching and our traditions and so on. And so we remain close but far. We can touch it kind of, but yet can't grasp it. And so there are also some philosophers and theologians who have said that, well, only God can reveal him or herself to us. And in some traditions, God is described as the correct teacher. This comes from Jewish tradition. The idea of an intelligence who knows everything, coming along to us and saying, all right, let's sit down, let's have a school, and let's learn about all this. And then it kind of makes sense, because here we are the people who don't know. Essentially, people who believe in God but don't know are called agnostics. They don't know. It's not that they deny, it's not that they disbelieve, it's not that they don't know anything at all, but that complete understanding is not there, and the desire for it is there. And so there is that possibility in our dealings with God, that possibility of coming together for an exchange, a communication. And so there is this phrase, they say, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And the thing is, what did he say? According to truth, and how to be near to God and near to one's own spirituality, how to live in the feeling of fraternity of the human family, so that the world becomes one which is without violence and without these differentiations that become reasons why people feel badly about one another. Because God is kind of forming the human family by teaching, by coming into relationship with all of us and showing us through this yoga how to be really more and ultimately totally in touch with our own divinity, so that it's not just a nice idea to be a child of God, but you actually are being a child of God in all aspects of your feelings and behaviors and interactions and all of that. And it's just kind of obvious to anybody that obviously this must be a childness, which is an ideal. It's like it's coming true, it's being seen to be possible, and it has a price. It's quite a lot of work to do this. It's very easy, but because it's subtle, it is work. And the reward that we get from pursuing this is very tremendous. And the price we pay for not working at it is, I suppose, it's a heritage. It's the most basic to our being, this re-establishment of a contact with God, and whatever we have to go through to get free, it's worth it. Sometimes you have to fight to stay subtle. Sometimes you have to fight this resistance of what we call Maya, 5 vices, whatever. It's a force, and it comes. But you resist with yoga and with understanding. And it's like Michael was saying, it's a journey, it's a state of becoming.